In honor of Jay Garrick being on CW's Flash, grab your adult beverage and let's talk about the very first issue of the very first Flash. The Flash is in my top 5 favorite superheroes of all time. Jay Garrick was the first Flash, and he had his first issue in The Flash #1, released in 1940. And like most comics released around that time, it is beautifully ridiculous. It's also a tad bit longer than the other origin stories I have been recounting. The Flash. Faster than the streak of the lightning in the sky. Swifter than the speed of light itself. Fleeter than the rapidity of thought. This is getting deep. Is the Flash. Reincarnation of the winged Mercury. His speed is the dismay of scientists. Poor scientists. The joy of the oppressed, and the open-mouthed wonder of the multitudes. But before he became known and feared as the fastest thing on Earth, Jay Garrick was an unknown student at a Midwestern university, and he had a crush on a girl named Joan. Catching up with his crush, Jay asks her to the victory dance as his date. She responds, I don't think, Jay. You're a scrub on the football team, and Captain Tryon's already asked me. And she doesn't stop there. She proceeds to just absolutely decimate this boy. Jay asks if she won't go with him because he's a football scrub, and she responds, no, but because a man of your build and brains could be a star. A scrub is just an old washwoman. You won't put your mind to football. She then walks away after tearing his very soul bare to the world, and he responds, so I'm an old washwoman, eh? I'll show her. But poor Jay, his resolution seems doomed to failure. Jay is not doing well on the field. However, in the research laboratory, he is a brilliant student. His professor tells him, Jay, you've studied the gases emitting from hard water for 3 years. This new experiment, and Jay, rudely, interrupts him and takes over the exposition for him. I know what it means, Professor. I'll separate the elements. Long into the night, the experiment goes on, and at 3:30 a.m., Jay decides he needs a smoke and accidentally leans back into his experiment, knocking it over. He is too slow to grab it, and it crashes to the floor. Now, let's examine this scene. 1. Who cleans up glass with their bare hands? If you raised your hand, put it down and slap it. 2. He's supposed to be a brilliant scientist. Why does he stop to smell the fumes? He's been working on it for 3 years. He should know how dangerous they are. 3. I love how he perfectly fell between the glass, and the glass changed its arrangements from the first panel to the next panel. This is a horror story, isn't it? Jay pays for his stupidity, and all night he inhales the deadly fumes of the gas elements of hard water. In the early dawn, Professor Hughes becomes curious and finds Jay, and somehow that glass has rearranged itself again. He gets Jay help and at the hospital asks the doctor if it's serious. The doctor responds that he doesn't know. It's a new gas, and he can't foresee its results. Jay is between life and death for weeks, but his young, healthy body fights back to life. Now this is one of my favorite parts. In another section of the hospital, the professor and doctor talk. The doctor explains that he's taken 20 tests and they all indicate the same thing. Jay is now the fastest thing to walk on this earth. The elements of hard water will speed up a person's reflexes. The gas injects him like a vaccination. Science knows that hard water makes a person act much quicker than ordinary. It checks out. Anyways, Jay can walk, talk, and run and think faster than thought. He could probably even outrace a bullet. He is a freak of science. This issue really likes exclamation points. But the freak of science sees that girl he likes, Joan, and in his anxiety realizes the doctors are right. His response to discovering he can indeed run super fast? Whee! I can travel. He gets to Joan before she can complete one step, and she is very startled to see him just appear in front of him. Joan says she's glad to see him, but she was going to get a book from the library. Jay offers to get it for her and scares the piss out of the librarian. Next panel, she comically announces she's going to faint, and then decides she will. I've never fainted that way, but hey. Jay reappears in front of Joan, and she takes his explanation of being a freak of science a lot better than I would have expected. He asks her to the dance, and she says on one condition: if he plays the state game. Hey, I know you've been in the hospital, I didn't visit you, you're now a freak of science, but do you want to play in that football game? Sounds legit. I'm sure she's not using you, Jay. At the game, Jay is on the bench until Bull is injured and the coach puts Jay in. Using his new powers, Jay runs down the field and scores a touchdown. As touchdown after touchdown piles up, the other players refuse to play against the superpowered Jay, declaring that they can't see him and he's like a ghost or hurricane. Then some government workers saw Jay, they took him, experimented on him, and no one ever saw him ever again. No, instead he seeks approval from Joan that says he's doing wonderful. I don't trust her. Ending the game at 65-30, Jay becomes the hero of the day. Seriously, no one's gonna report this? No one thinks this is weird? No? Okay. The year sweeps by and they all graduate. Jay and Joan, I'm assuming, have been dating for the past year and now don't give a shit that they're going to be separated, announce their post-grad plans. Joan is going to help her dad with his atomic bombarder research, and Jade in New York to be an assistant professor at Coleman University. Jump forward to one evening in New York, Jay sees racketeers are eluding the district attorney's men, and that night he visits the gangsters clad as a figure in the wings of Mercury. How did he decide on this name? How did he create this costume? How did he learn to use his powers effectively to fight crime? Apparently that was not important to the story. As well, seeing him take on these new gangsters was also not important, but the criminals sure are freaked out and decide to quit their life of crime. Back at home, Jay feels good about channeling his powers into fighting crime and feels like he's giving back to humanity. Sometime later at Coleman University, Jay is playing tennis all by himself in public. Why? Because fuck secret identities, that's why. And Joan and a man with her just happen to witness it. In fact, Jay is going so fast that he can't even see him. Then how do you even know he's there, eh? Fucking liar. And why has no one grabbed Jay? Seriously, he's using his freakish speed in public at a university. Why has no one called this shit out? Jay spots Joan and says how great it is to see her again. And just like old times, Joan wants something out of Jay. Apparently, her father has been kidnapped. But just then, a car almost hits Joan, and then the occupants of the car start firing at her. But the Flash leaps into action and attunes himself with the speed of the bullet to avoid injury. He catches the bullet saying, Now, little one, where are you going?" "Well, I think to kill Joan. Didn't we already establish that?" Jay catches it and tells Joan, "I'll be up tonight and you can tell me all about it." Alright. But in another part of town, an evil man, well, is he really evil? What do we know about Joan and her father? This evil man declares Joan Williams is dead. The three men then have the weirdest dialogue, using their names in their speech. Satan says that Williams will now tell them about his secret atomic bombarder base. Orloff, surgeon extraordinaire, will give his daughter her life, if he tells. Wait, didn't they just say she was dead? And he sped off, leaving her to be dead on the sidewalk. How are they going to give her life? Are they going to raise an undead Joan? Holy shit, this is a horror story. The last man speaks. "What of me, Doriel?" "Thank you. They may have forgotten your name if you didn't constantly say it in sentences." "I shall visit him in the room of mirrors to get his answer." "In the room of mirrors that I guess are stealing Mr. Williams' mind?" How would a room of mirrors steal your mind? This is a legitimate question. I am honestly afraid for the people that had to live through the 40s. But Williams won't tell. Which sucks because they want to sell the atomic bombarder to several foreign nations for a cool $1 million each. Their new plan? Visit Joan's home as an undertaker and bring her body back here to shock him with his daughter's dead body. These guys are all over the fucking place with their plans. First, they were going to bring this girl back to life, and now they're going to taunt him with her dead body. Pick a plan, dudes. 2, you're gonna go to her home to recover her body? Maybe it was different in the 40s, but generally when someone dies or is shot, you take them to the hospital, and if you can't resuscitate them, you then bring them to a morgue. Why would they put her dead body in her home? Regardless, he arrives at Joan's home asking about the dead girl, saying she had an accident today. Jay wonders how he would know that unless he knows who shot her. Joan pops out the door and the man says there must be some mistake and leaves. Jay tells Joan that the man must know of the shooting, but he will let him go to hear what Joan has to say. Joan remarks he must be one of the faultless 4. She explains that 3 months ago her father received a card signed by the faultless 4, asking for his secret bombarder. Not even making that up. They seriously just sent this guy a postcard. Joan says they kidnapped him because her father wouldn't tell them the elements and that the faultless 4 all have great power. All of them are brilliant scientists. Jay states that they probably have her father prisoner, and this is the work for the Flash. Again, they really love exclamation marks in this comic, like a lot. But then Jay takes off in a flash. Jay races to catch up with the fake Undertaker and quickly rushes past him, and discovers the apartment of the faultless 4. Doriel tells his partners that the girl is still alive and he missed, but he never misses. They decide to try again, but Flash appears advising them against that. Doriel exclaims, "The Flash! I've heard of him!" No shit, who hasn't? He practically shows off his powers any time he can. Jay again matches his speed to that of the bullet and lunges forward. This'll slay him. And what I mean... I'm gonna be honest, Jay, I don't even know what the fuck you mean. Again, the writers try to explain Jay's ability through science. If you have read The Flash throughout the years, they will try to do this over and over, and it's never quite right or takes into account many other factors. But you want to know what? I always give them points for trying. After catching the bullet, the Flash takes off searching the building and finding a trap door. There he finds Williams in the mirror torture room? Flash grabs him and escapes, racing through the streets of New York. He begins to run so fast, Williams says he can't breathe. But he's talking, so we know he can breathe. Flash brings him to Joan and they embrace. The Flash disappears before Williams can even thank him. Back at the headquarters of the 4, Flash attempts to overhear their plans. At Coney Island Beach, they're going to scare people into a panic, and while the police are looking for them at Coney Island, they'll get Joan and her father. How many police officers do they think are on duty? Surely they wouldn't make all the police officers go to one location. That's ridiculous. Oh. Flash decides to let them go through with their plans so he can get them in the act of murder. The next day, at the crowded Coney Island beach, Doriel attacks from the sky. How many people died from this? There's no way he didn't hit at least one person with all those bullets. And Flash just let this happen? Oh, there he is. He takes off his clothes, around people of course, and becomes the Flash. And now he starts catching the bullets. I'm pretty sure some of those bullets hit the beach before he took off his clothing. Pretty sure Flash let some people die. But Doriel sees the Flash and decides to warn the others. Weaving in and out of traffic and almost causing collisions, the Flash heads to Joan. Eventually he spots the faultless 4 and slows down so they can see him. Doriel declares, "The game's up, the Flash," and they drive to the apartment. Yet the next panel we see that Joan and her father are safe. So, what was the game? Flash decides this time no mercy and shows up at their apartment. I just thought of this. 4 adult males sharing an apartment. Is that weird? But evil pointy-bearded Satan wired the room and electrocuted the Flash and his partners. This is why you don't become business partners with Satan. But the Flash had slipped out of the room in time. And just left the other 3 men to die. But Satan says he'll get away from him in his new car, but even the speed of the car isn't enough. And Flash says the scariest fucking thing ever. "You shall also die, even as Doriel, Orloff, and Smith." Satan's mind can't handle it, and his mind cracks, causing his car to sweep through the railings and hurtle downward. The Flash, already waiting at the bottom of the ravine, chimes in, "I'm on hand, just to see your finish." Later, Joan, her father, and Jay are sharing drinks, laughing hysterically about the psychological torture they inflicted on an old man and how he watched him slowly bleed out from his car accident-related injuries. Joan's father talks about how amazing the Flash is and asks Joan if she knows him. Joan replies, "I just can't imagine, Dad. Anyhow, a secret's a secret, isn't it?" You know, besides all the other times Jay's in public showing off his powers, seriously, how has no one put 2 and 2 together already? So that was the very first issue of the very first Flash. A little long, but adorably ridiculous. Make sure you come back every Thursday for comic-related videos. Sometimes this will be comic book story time, and I'm going to intermix it a little bit with countdowns and other comic-related videos. But I will try to do at least 2 comic book story times per month. Besides that, come back for Star Wars, Game of Thrones, The Walking Dead, and other news updates on those shows.